So this is it. This is a preview of the Klipsch Cornwall IV speaker. It's big. I think it's beautiful. It is a heavyweight speaker that's just kind of shaking me up, turning me around, and making me a very happy man, loving my job. I love it a lot, usually, but this is taking it to a different level because it's just got this power. I love speakers with 15-inch woofers, which this one does. I shouldn't say I love all speakers with 15-inch woofers, but I like speakers that have that kind of gravitas that only a 15-inch can provide. Maybe that's a better way to put where I'm coming from. So now I finally have a speaker with a 15-inch driver in it. And of course, it's not just the woofer is big, it's that it's a big speaker with a big mid-range horn and a beautiful tweeter, and it's making all the right moves. So I'm going to get into the details of it right now. Now, I've lived with the Fortes, the Klipsch Forte 3s for almost a year, I guess. I don't know, I've lost track of time, but I've been heavy into the Klipsch world lately, and living with the Forte 3s, large, full range speaker has been terrific. But when I heard that the Cornwall, the bigger brother, substantially bigger brother to the Forte 3 was coming, I was like, yeah, I want some of that, right? So now it's here. It's been here for about, there's two of them. They've been here for about a week. Yeah, not even a week. So I'm going through the motions here of learning about them, pairing them with different electronics, etc. And it's been a fascinating ride. I haven't actually A/B'd them against the Forte 3, but I can tell you this, that the Cornwall IV sounds like a substantially bigger, more robust sounding speaker. One of my audiophile buddies said, so what is it? Sum it up in one word. What's the main thing you hear when you go from the Forte 3 to the Cornwall IV? And I would say, well, it's hard to do it in one word, but if I had to, I would say mid-range. The mid-range on the Forte 3 is really good, but the Cornwall IV has just more. It's more present, it's more body, it's more substance to the mid-range, it's more flesh and blood, it's more whole, it's more complete. Maybe that's what I'm searching for. So that's really exciting. But one of the things I've noticed about horn speakers is that I play them louder than I would with other speakers because it doesn't hurt. That's what it is. They just don't get sound. You don't sense strain when you're pushing them louder and louder. They just get louder and louder, and sometimes you don't even feel like they're louder because you're not getting that increased sense of strain or distortion or whatever you want to call it that happens with, let's say, more conventional box speakers. The price, by the way, is $6,000 a pair, or $3,000 each as they price them on their website. But the thing is, the difference between the Cornwall 3 and Cornwall 4, you don't have to be a speaker designer to spot the difference. The mid-range horn is much, much larger on the 4. You'd also notice that where the 3 had basically a slot, it was a bass reflex design with a slot at the bottom end of the baffle, the front baffle. And the new one has these Tractrix shaped ports running across the bottom of the front baffle. So that's pretty cool. Certainly looks cool, and I presume sounds better. I've never heard a Cornwall 3, so I can't say how it sounds different. But I can tell you that living with a 15-inch woofer is exhilarating because this sense of power to it, not just that it goes deep, but it's just this brawny, muscled car. It's like a 1960s muscle car, but with finesse. It's not to say that it's just thick and booming its way through life here. No, it's got real control and finesse and refinement. And yeah, I'm going through that phase of just grabbing different recordings and listening to this and listening to that kind of deal. And it's just a thrill. So, I should mention, by the way, that the tweeter is a 1-inch titanium tweeter in a compression-loaded horn, a Tractrex horn, and the mid-range is a 1.75-inch mid-range in a it's a polyamide, not a titanium driver, which kind of surprised me, really. And the woofer is a 15-inch woofer that is, what is it called? Fiber composite. Another word for paper, I assume. But maybe fancy paper, right? But in any case, the sound is immensely satisfying. Now, I've used 3 amps. I have more, but I just was flipping around between these 3. I started with a 1st Watt J2, which is about a 20 watt Class A amplifier from 1st Watt. Sounded good. For some reason, I didn't linger on the J2 that long. I jumped to the F7, another 1st Watt amp. I've been on the F7 mostly. It just seems to really click with the speaker. But I yesterday jumped over to the Pass Labs XA25. Now the XA25 is rated at 25 watts a channel, but when John Atkinson measured it for the stereophile review, I think it was vastly more powerful. And so you can't judge it as an equivalent power-wise of the 1st Watt amps. It's much more powerful. But I went back to the F7. The F7 is where I'm settling for the time being, and I'll see how that goes. I have a tube amp coming soon. I don't want to say whose, but I'm looking forward to running a big tube amp on it. Not that big, but a substantial tube amp on it soon. So this is going to be a work in progress, making a video for the Cornwall IV. I'm going to stretch out a bit. This is just sort of a heads up of where my head is at relative to these incredible speakers. And by the way, did I mention they were big? They're 25 inches wide. Just do that, and then you got a sense of the mass of this speaker. They weigh 100 pounds. And yes, like all of the Heritage Series Klipsch speakers, they're made in Hope, Arkansas. Just like the good old days when Paul Klipsch was around. So I think it's a lot of speaker in size, in poundage, and absolutely in sound for $6,000. A lot of money? Absolutely. Once you get into it and you go back to a speaker that doesn't have that level of life to it, it just sounds kind of drab. Once you get used to horns, box speakers and even panel speakers can sound kind of clamped down. So I'm still well into my horn phase. I'm not saying this is my final space, but you know, I like to try it all. I mean, I recently did the Ohm Walsh 2000 speaker, an omnidirectional speaker. Completely different experience than what I'm getting out of these. And if I was going to say a rich man. If I was a rich man with a lot of big apartment or a house with lots of rooms, I'd have them all. I would have a horn speaker room, and I would have an omni speaker room, and I would have a panel speaker room, and I would certainly have a room for conventional box speakers. They all do different things well. There's not one type of speaker that does it all. That's going to make every, click every box or check every box, right? That hasn't happened yet. I don't see it happening anytime soon. So if you want it all, you got to get it all. Right now in 2019, if you got the space, sure, get horns, get a panel, get an omni, get a box that suit your size and taste and budget, and be a happy camper. But if you have to choose, as most of us have to choose one type or the other, well, you got to make your choices. And I'm landing for the time being in the horn speaker camp. And that's for me personally, obviously. But it's not to say I will move on to something else, because I am, after all, a reviewer. I can't just say, okay, I found the perfect speaker, now I'm done, now I got nothing else to say. No, there's always new things to talk about and new advancements in all types of speakers, which is why I recently did the Ohm speaker, because it's a different flavor. It's a different view of Mount Fuji. It's a different sound that was actually incredibly lifelike. The breadth and depth and of the soundstage coming out of that ohm was just mind roasting compared to any box speaker, or even panel speakers don't do that. So like I said, if I had room for them all, I'd keep them all. That's what I would do. And that's what I suggest you do if you could, but you probably can't. So more to come on the Cornwall IV in, I don't know, a month or two? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But I can say right now, oh, you know, I should mention, by the way, their imaging. Because some people think that horn speakers still have this kind of cupped hand coloration thing going on. These speakers definitely don't have it. And their imaging at this point, and I think I'm still dialing that in, their imaging is very spacious, very open sounding speaker with actually good sense of depth, good sense of focus. So no, if you think of horn speakers the way they used to sound, no, this speaker isn't advanced, which is why they moved from the 3 to the 4 and from the 2 to the 3, because they were making it better. I shouldn't say they. Roy Delgado, I believe is his title, is the chief engineer for Klipsch. I've talked to him a couple of times. Super nice guy, and he is definitely pushing for these changes, and I think he's really nailing it. I think you get the gist, right? My name's Steve Guttenberg. This is still the Audiophiliac Daily Show. If you dig it, please, I urge you, I'm pleading with you, subscribe. Hit that button right down there and be a member of this incredible club. You can follow me on Twitter at AudiophiliacMan. The least you should do is give me a thumbs up when I deserve it, and share these videos when you think they're worth sharing. And if all else, you're loving everything that I do, thank you very much. Subscribe. Check out my Patreon at patreon.com/ say it, Audiophiliac. Thanks so much for watching.